Channel 2.
From ABC, this is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings. Tonight reporting from Washington, Ted Koppel.
Good evening. Danny, the fourth tropical storm of the season, has graduated to the more dangerous status of hurricane. By definition, that is when a tropical storm has sustained winds of 74 miles an hour. Hurricane Danny, now 250 miles south-southwest of New Orleans, began late this afternoon, packing winds of 75 miles an hour, and could hit land within the next 24 hours. As ABC's Mark Potter reports, people along the coast are taking no chances.
In New Orleans, the biggest concern is for workers on the offshore oil rigs. Throughout the day, helicopters flew thousands of them ashore. They had spent the night preparing the rigs for the storm.
There's the wind starting to pick up and we were working last night and it started getting kind of rough on us, trying to get ready to move off the rig.
Since the type of rig we on, it can tilt pretty easily. The wind velocity would pick up, any more than what it is.
But most precautions now are being taken west of New Orleans, along the Louisiana-Texas border. Because of previous experiences, those areas take hurricane threats seriously. In coastal Cameron, Louisiana, residents have been ordered to evacuate immediately. Many already have left by ferry boat. They're also boarding up windows there. In 1957, Cameron was leveled by a hurricane in which 381 persons died. In Sabine Pass, Texas, the Coast Guard station is flying gale warning flags, and the shrimping fleet is coming back to shore. In Orange, Texas, city workers are getting their emergency vehicles ready, and ham radio operators are testing their equipment. Storm preparations are expected to speed up as the hurricane approaches. Mark Potter, ABC News, New Orleans.
There's been an important medical development today. Doctors at Johns Hopkins University say that an unconventional new treatment for advanced liver cancer is having some success. ABC's George Strait has the details.
Doctors say Glo Gooden is making history. She and about 100 other patients are part of an experiment which may have produced the first effective treatment for the world's most common form of cancer, liver cancer.
I'm able to lead a perfectly normal life, and I feel just as well as you all do.
What we're talking about in this program is not only a high partial remission rate, that is a reduction in cancer, but also the first cases that have been completely remitted of their cancer.
What's been discovered here at Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore, Maryland, are specific antibodies or cells that only kill cancer. Injected into the bloodstream, these antibodies seek out and destroy liver cancer cells. And to make the antibodies even more effective, doctors have attached to the antibody radioactive iodine, which poisons liver cancer cells.
We have 2 people disease-free, one in 3.5 years and one in 1.25 years, and it's never been done in medicine before.
Statistically, 8 out of 10 liver cancer patients die within 6 months. Glo Gooden has lived 3 years with her disease. Another patient with a 15-pound tumor had it shrink to less than 2 pounds. While excited about the results and the absence of side effects, Dr. Order emphasizes the treatment is not a cure and only works 50% of the time. Even though the treatment is considered experimental and only performed in Baltimore and San Francisco, it still represents a chance at life for liver cancer patients that up until now did not exist. George Strait, ABC News, Washington.
Later in this broadcast, that plane crash in Japan. Investigators have found the black boxes. The Navajo code talkers keeping secrets from the Japanese during World War II. And we'll have a status report from our chief correspondent, Richard Threlkeld, on the 50th anniversary of Social Security.
This is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings, brought to you by Kellogg's Apple Raisin Crisp cereal.
Where does Kellogg's Apple Raisin Crisp cereal get its homemade taste?
Homemade taste?
Does Apple Raisin Crisp get its homemade taste from apples like Grandma baked?
Tastes like my recipe.
Does Apple Raisin Crisp get its homemade taste from the raisins that sweeten its taste?
I love raisins.
Do the big crisp flakes with the apples baked on bring on that crunchy taste?
Apples baked in the flakes.
Where does Apple Raisin Crisp get its delicious homemade taste?
Only from Kellogg's. The makers of Tylenol have recently made pain relief better with extra-strength caplets. Look. Caplets are specially designed. They're shaped and coated to make them especially easy to swallow. Extra-strength caplets, only from Tylenol.
Once man's feet walked free. In time, he developed shoes. Soon, man developed athlete's foot.
Egad.
Today, there's Mycotin with Myconazole, a patented ingredient to cure athlete's foot. Mycotin, the end of the road for athlete's foot.
Investigators in Japan have now recovered the black boxes from that Japan Airlines 747 which crashed into a mountain, killing 520 people. As Jim Laurie reports, those investigators are also talking to some of the survivors to try to figure out just what went wrong.
Search teams combing the wreckage today recovered what may be the key evidence in determining why Flight 123 went down, the flight and voice recorders containing the last data and conversations. Also found with the main wreckage, the right rear door, disputing theories it might have blown off before the crash. And at sea, 60 miles away, searchers recovered more parts of the tail section, including the lower rudder. Further indication the plane had somehow first lost the vital tail assembly, without which the pilot could not control his aircraft. To assist in the investigation, officials from Boeing arrived today from Seattle. And in a typically Japanese gesture, the president of Japan Airlines offered to resign to accept responsibility for the crash. At the crash site, the search for bodies continued, the remains taken to a school gymnasium, the relatives enduring the painful process of identification, then offering a silent Buddhist prayer. Kuyashi, I just can't bear it. She had lost her only son. The 4 survivors of the crash were reported in stable condition, and to Japan Airlines officials, one told her story. Yumi Ochiai. After the crash, a night on the mountain, and a perilous rescue, this is how the off-duty flight attendant recalled the last minutes of Flight 123. I was reading a magazine, then heard a loud bang right above me. My ears began to hurt. A white cloud of moisture filled the cabin. The ceiling near the rear toilet collapsed. The plane began to shake back and forth, left and right. We all assumed the crash position. The plane was in a steep dive. Then I was jolted 2 or 3 times. Seats and cushions flew everywhere. The next thing she knew, she was on the ground. I was in great pain, trapped in a pile of airplane seats. Later I saw a helicopter, tried to wave, they didn't see me. There was no fire where I was. I fell asleep. The next thing I knew, I awoke to a man's voice. There was daylight. Yumi Ochiai, one of 4, had survived. Jim Laurie, ABC News, Tokyo.
This is the second time in as many weeks that there have been at least a few survivors of a major plane crash. Some investigators wonder if the location of their seats may have contributed to their survival. Here's ABC's Bettina Gregory.
4 people survived the crash of the Japan Airlines 747. 34 were rescued from the wreckage of the Delta L-1011 in Dallas. 30 survived today. All 4 Japanese survivors were seated in the rear. So were most of the 30 Delta survivors. The tail of that plane was sheared off diagonally at row 35 and thrown clear of the fireball which engulfed the fuselage. Juanita Williams had a rear seat.
God saved my life. There's no doubt about that. But I think it helped, you know, just the fact being in that particular area.
And news of the rear seat survivors is being felt at airline ticket counters.
I'd like to sit in the back by the tail, if I may.
Even families with children are requesting the back of the airplanes now.
They want non-smoking, but they want the rear of the airplane.
I'm rather distressed that that's also the smoking section, and those of us that don't smoke are placed in a part of the plane that isn't as safe.
But is the rear of an airplane really safer? An aviation expert says yes, because in a crash, the nose of the airplane often hits the ground first.
Things in front of me are breaking up and collapsing and tearing off, but as they're doing, they're slowing the airplane down and absorbing G-forces.
But the government disagrees.
I'm not aware that anybody has successfully demonstrated that one particular place or another is the better place to be.
Last year in California, the FAA deliberately crashed a jet with dummies aboard to see what would happen. The test verified the impact was greatest in the forward cabin and cockpit, but a rear seat was no advantage. The test concluded all 73 dummies probably would have survived the impact, but only 20% would have escaped the ensuing flames. That depended on how close they were to exits not engulfed in fire. Aviation expert Daniel Johnson.
It's better to sit near an exit. Those people who are near exits are more likely to survive an accident which involves, say, fire or one that lands in the water than those people further from the exit.
So while a seat near the rear might improve chances of surviving the impact, a seat near an exit might allow those who survive the crash to escape from a burning airplane. Bettina Gregory, ABC News, Washington.
In tonight's Money Matters, there's a tentative agreement which could end a strike by Teamsters who transport new cars to auto dealers. Some 20,000 drivers and maintenance workers have been on strike for 19 days. From now on, when someone sings a Beatles song, they'll be paying a royalty to Michael Jackson. In one of the biggest song deals ever, Jackson has purchased the rights to almost all the 260 songs written by John Lennon and Paul McCartney. The price? $40 million. On Wall Street, stocks closed a bit higher again today. The Dow Jones Industrials gained about 1.5 points in continued light trading. In a moment, the jailed South African dissident Nelson Mandela is allowed to see his wife.
Any real estate company can sell you a house and say that the wiring's in perfect condition and say the plumbing won't leak and the central heating and cooling systems ought to last. One real estate company offers the buyer protection plan that helps protect you from costly repairs. ERA. There is a difference in real estate companies. ERA Real Estate, a part of the Commercial Credit Financial Network.
When the burning, itching, and soreness of hemorrhoids flare up, Tux medicated pads give you soothing, cooling relief on contact. For hemorrhoid flare-up, get Tux from Park Davis.
It takes 1 minute. It fights plaque and bad breath. It's Listerine. With regular brushing, Listerine reduces plaque by up to 50% for better oral hygiene. Listerine, 30 seconds, twice a day.
This couple just lost their traveler's checks. American Express traveler's checks.
Are you sure we don't have to do anything else?
But now we can have a refund delivered right to them in under 3 hours.
Maybe we should just go make another call in case they don't know we're...
So they won't miss a minute of their vacation.
Mr. Webb? Yes. Your refund.
Oh,
thanks. Only American Express can deliver a traveler's check refund right to you. Don't leave home without them.
Honey, you gotta learn to relax.
South African President P.W. Botha is set to announce changes or modifications in the apartheid system tomorrow. Along with that announcement, a great many blacks are hoping his speech will also include an announcement that the black South African dissident Nelson Mandela is getting out of prison. He's been in jail since 1964 for planning acts of sabotage against the government. As Jim Hickey reports, today Mandela had a surprise visit from his wife.
Winnie Mandela flew to Cape Town with official permission today to visit her husband, jail dissident Nelson Mandela. The South African government, under pressure to release Mandela from Pollsmoor prison, worries that he will resort to violence instead of dialogue. But he spoke from prison today, issuing an invitation through his wife to President Botha.
P.W. Botha is welcome to come and speak to him and find out for himself what his views are. He is quite welcome to visit him in prison.
Botha, according to one unconfirmed report today, may alter his demand that Mandela abandon violence as a condition for release, requiring instead only his willingness to participate in peaceful processes. That same report, quoting South African sources, says the government will offer common citizenship to all 30 million South Africans, including the 24 million blacks. At a student rally in Johannesburg today, Bishop Desmond Tutu was ready to reject the reforms even before they are made public. The reason? Blacks are not included in the decision-making.
And for that reason, just that reason alone, what the state president is going to say will be almost certainly unacceptable.
The government has a ticklish problem: how to grant concessions to blacks without angering South Africa's 5 million whites. Some are worried the reforms might go too far. Although there's been intense speculation about what President Botha's reforms might include, the government so far has refused to give any solid clues. It's all being kept under a tight lid until the president makes his speech to the ruling National Party conference in Durban tomorrow night. Jim Hickey, ABC News, Johannesburg.
American officials flew to Hanoi today to bring home the remains of 26 more American servicemen killed during the Vietnam War. Here's ABC's Mark Litke.
26 plain wooden boxes were already lined up near the runway at Hanoi's Noi Bai Airport when the U.S. military delegation arrived to take them home. Each crate contained bones and fragments, along with some personal effects. Members of the U.S. team examined the contents of each one, checking with the information and documents they'd brought along. The Vietnamese said there was no documentation to go with one case, which may not have been the remains of a U.S. serviceman. But after each box was sealed, they were all treated with military honors.
Order! Arms!
Solemnly carried aboard a C-130 transport for the trip to the Military Identification Laboratory in Hawaii. Clearly, Vietnam is stepping up efforts to resolve the MIA issue in a bid to improve relations between Washington and Hanoi. Vietnamese officials said today they're looking forward to the visit of a high-level U.S. delegation expected later this month for more MIA talks. That possibility is stirring hopes again that even more MIAs will soon be accounted for, though military officials admit that the fate of hundreds who fought and died in Vietnam may never be known. Mark Litkey, ABC News, Bangkok.
When we come back, the Navajo Code Talkers. They kept America's secrets during World War II.
That cool, refreshing feeling of Wrigley's spearmint gum puts a sparkle in your eye, a spring in your step, and makes things lots of fun.
It's that little lift from Wrigley's spearmint gum. It's that little lift. Come on and get you some.
That clean, fresh taste Wrigley's spearmint's got. That little lift that means a lot.
It's that little lift from Wrigley's spearmint gum.
Good posture. You don't think about it until you realize you can lose it. 1 out of 4 women may, due in part to a calcium deficiency. That's why there's Posture, a new calcium supplement. Without enough calcium, bones can become porous and weak. But Posture taken daily can help them stay strong. And it's specially made not to produce gas. Don't wait. Eat right, exercise, and take new Posture now to help assure good posture later.
Tell the truth. Is there a really great tasting decaffeinated coffee?
Oh, yes. Taster's Choice Decaffeinated. It's made with the same superior Arabica beans found in gourmet coffee stores. Naturally decaffeinated, using only water and natural decaffeinators for the purest coffee taste. Naturally decaffeinated Taster's Choice. One more reason why the choice for taste is Taster's Choice.
Thanks a lot, Citibank. You had to make your Visa and MasterCards better than other banks. Only your cards offer city dining. Saves my boss and his wife 20% at restaurants all over town. So now he can take a bunch of the guys out to dinner. But he still can't take his mind off of work.
All right, boys, let's all step up to the plate. Dig in. And remember, it's all in the wrist. In the wrist.
Visa and MasterCard from Citibank.
Keep your eye on the meatball.
It's the bank that makes them better.
40 years ago today, the war in the Pacific finally came to an end. It was VJ Day, the day the Japanese accepted the Allied terms of surrender. President Truman made the announcement to the nation.
I deem this reply a full acceptance of the Potsdam Declaration, which specifies the unconditional surrender of Japan.
As word reached New York's Times Square, there was dancing in the streets to celebrate the end of the war. It was pretty much the same on the other side of the country, on Market Street in San Francisco. Today, at San Francisco's Golden Gate, there was a ceremony aboard the aircraft carrier Enterprise, marking the anniversary. Vice President Bush, who was a bomber pilot shot down during the war, tossed a wreath overboard to honor the Americans who died in the Pacific. Among the guests of honor, the widow of General Douglas MacArthur, the man who accepted Japan's formal surrender. From the attack on Pearl Harbor to the dropping of the bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the story of America's war in the Pacific is well known to most of us. Tonight, we have a story from that war that may not be as familiar. How a handful of Navajo Indians managed to keep America's military secrets safe from the Japanese. Here's ABC's Barry Serafin.
During some of the fiercest fighting of the war in the Pacific at places like Iwo Jima, Saipan, Tarawa, and Guadalcanal, U.S. Marines had what was thought to have been impossible, an unbreakable code. Although not recorded in combat films, it sounded like this. The thousands of messages that baffled the Japanese were in Navajo, relayed between Indians specially recruited and trained to serve with combat units. They were called the Navajo Code Talkers. Theirs was a code within a code, spoken in Navajo, with some words substituted for letters of the alphabet and others for military terms. A bird, for example, was a plane, an iron fish, a submarine, a turtle, a tank. The job of the Code Talkers was vital.
Because they relayed information so quickly, so reliably, undoubtedly saved a great number of Americans from becoming casualties.
Although officially classified for more than 20 years, the work of the Code Talkers got some brief notice, even in the movies.
I got Crazy Horse up there. They don't savvy Navajo. Get in touch with them. See what the situation is. Get you one there,
There were 305 Code Talkers in all. After the war, many of them came back here to the Navajo Reservation, a nation within a nation the size of West Virginia. Their pursuits have been different over the past 40 years. Frank Thompson, for example, supervises the tribal maintenance shop. Carl Gorman has won recognition as an artist. James Nakai is a member of the tribe's governing council, but they share strong bonds from their days as Code Talkers.
The Navajos did their part in World War II. We served for our Navajo Nation and also the United States nation.
At a tribal park in Window Rock, Arizona, a group of former Code Talkers told us that before the war, they had been forbidden to speak their language in government schools.
The policy was no Navajo, English. And if you spoke Navajo, you got some severe punishment. Then that, of course, changed once we got into the Marine Corps. We had to talk it then.
They still remember their code.
To interpret the word password over our network, we'd say pig, apple, 2 snakes in a row, and word. And in the Navajo, in our translation, it would be Besot Belasan Klishikidot Ishsad.
Many of the Code Talkers kept silent for years about their role and the fighting they saw.
And we kept it to ourselves. We kept all that, the blood and everything else, out where it happened, rather than bringing it home.
But they are also proud of their service.
We showed them that we are part of American system. We're called on and we serve our country like anybody else.
40 years later, the younger Navajos are beginning to realize that we have done something for our country.
That legacy is important to these ex-Marines. Their war is a memory now, but many of their sons and grandsons have followed them into military service, inspired in part at least by a presidential commendation finally presented nearly 4 decades after the war, citing the patriotism, resourcefulness, and courage of the Navajo Code Talkers. Barry Seraphin, ABC News, Window Rock, Arizona.
When we come back, Social Security, 50 years old today.
Want a good reason why my antacid is Tums? I'll give you 3. 1, Tums is effective. It neutralizes 1/3 more stomach acid than the other leading brand. And that's what I take an antacid for. 2, sodium. I don't want any. And Tums is sodium-free. 3, Tums is rich in calcium. And to me, an extra source of calcium is extra good news.
Mercedes-Benz was building sports sedans before there was such a term as sports sedan. Experience pays. The Mercedes-Benz 190 class. The heart of a sports sedan. The soul of a Mercedes-Benz. The 190 class. Something more than a sports sedan. Nothing less than a Mercedes-Benz.
A day in the life of a Commodore 64. The Commodore 64. Once you get it, You'll wonder how you got along without it.
Tonight on Nightline, comedian Henny Youngman joins Ted Koppel for a look at how one small region became known as the cradle of American comedy. They call it the Borscht Belt.
Finally tonight, Social Security. President Franklin Roosevelt signed the bill creating the system 50 years ago today. In some ways, Social Security itself is like a lot of 50-year-olds, in pretty good shape now, but getting a little worried about what may happen in the years to come. We have a status report from our chief correspondent, Richard Threlkeld.
It's sort of like indoor plumbing. It's hard to imagine a time when it wasn't available. But 50 years ago, when President Roosevelt signed it, Social Security was a newfangled, radical idea.
We have tried to frame a law which will give some measure of protection to the average citizen and to his family against the loss of a job and against poverty-stricken old age.
Critics thought it smacked of socialism, or worse.
And to call it Social Security is a fraud on the working man.
Trouble was, in 1935, tens of millions of working men weren't working, and there was no safety net.
You died early, or you lived miserably, and you lived in fear. Before that, I don't think we have any notion how risky life was.
Social Security took some of the risk out of it. It wasn't a handout. You paid into it, and it paid you back when you needed it. That's still the principle today. The government spends a fourth of its budget on 37 million retirees and dependent children and the unemployed and disabled. Socialism or not, what Americans were saying about it 50 years ago.
Here I am, a widow with 2 grown children, and the $45 a month sure takes a load off my mind.
Americans are still saying today.
It's helpful to many of us, especially now with the Medicare too, you know, when you get older.
And our income is mostly from Social Security, the pension, and it's doing very well by us.
My estimation that this is about the best piece of legislation that ever came out of Congress.
Over the years, it's helped 110 million Americans to get by, and it's still solvent, thanks to some fiscal surgery by Congress a couple of years back. But it's going to get even more expensive or get changed unless we can repeal the laws of arithmetic. 50 years ago, there were 16 workers to support each retired person. Today, that ratio is down to just 3 to 1. And the young folks who are now paying a lot more for Social Security than their parents ever did are pretty skeptical they'll ever get what they're paying for.
I see that they send out a lot of checks to everyone, but I mean, for young people like us, I don't know if it's even going to be around.
It's scary.
Honestly, don't think we'll get anything out of it. We're just paying a lot of money for nothing.
40 years down the line, there's no way it's going to be anything here for me.
Chances are the government will find a way, whatever the cost. Social Security's become like motherhood and apple pie. Even America's most prominent senior citizen and paragon of self-reliance wouldn't touch Social Security with a David Stockman.
I will never stand for a reduction of the Social Security benefits to the people that are now getting them.
It's a tribute to that other great communicator that 50 years after, 9 out of 10 Americans, young and old, think Social Security is one good thing, at least, the government has done. Now as then, they won't leave home without it. Richard Threlkeld, ABC News, New York.
That's our report on World News Tonight. I'm Ted Koppel. For all of us here at ABC News, have a good evening.
Tonight, Blake confronts Daniel Reese on Dynasty. Then a teenage tennis star battles the KGB plot on Hotel. Tonight on ABC.
Oh, that's a great dinner. Wow, it's time to clean up. Let's go.
What's the rush?
Mickey's coming over.
Mickey?
Okay.
409's powerful grease cutter. Start to work before you start to wipe.
Way to hustle, Dad.
Who's Mickey?
409 even cuts easily through greasy grime.
Terrific. Sorry you have to rush off.
Will somebody please tell me who's Mickey?
Hi.
Hi.
Formula 409 starts to work before you start to wipe.